Hello everybody, this is Starrapter. Welcome to another episode of Recap of Thrones. This is Season 7, Episode 2, titled Stormborn. Just like every week, I'm going to break down the episode, telling you what's good, what's bad, some speculation, and my quote of the episode. So here we go with the rundown. So we have Dany, who makes her battle plans, and we go to Jon Snow, who accepts an invitation from Daenerys. We have Cersei, who learns of a way to kill the dragons. We have Jaime, who seeks to make Randyll Tarly general of his army. Then we have Sam, who attempts to save Ser Jorah's life, followed by Grey Worm and Missandei having a long goodbye. Then we see Arya, who meets an old friend. And finally, we have the Greyjoys and Ellaria Sand, who are ambushed by Euron Greyjoy. So, moving on to my positives, the first thing I want to talk about is Theon Greyjoy's decision when he decides to abandon ship rather than attempt to save his sister Yara's life from the grips of Euron. I think it was a good call because honestly, like, if he tried to get him, he would just behead her. So, there's a chance that he could come back and, you know, try to save his sister. And I like Theon. He is one of my favorite characters in this entire series because he is one of these down-to-earth characters. I could see, like, a lot of people, myself included, not knowing what to do in that situation and, you know, just doing something instinctively. So I enjoyed that. Another thing I want to talk about is Daenerys in the beginning of the episode pardoning Varys. So we know Varys is the spy master of all these different kings, and he doesn't take any of this personal. He you know, he is going for the greater good of the kingdom of Westeros, of everything. And well, Daenerys is very stern, but she makes herself very clear that, you know, he is going to be burned if he turns his back on her. Another thing I want to talk about is Jon Snow making his decision on meeting up with Daenerys, and he was in the very minority for, you know, attempting to confront Daenerys because, well, the last time members of his family, his grandfather approached the Targaryens, they ended up burning him alive, basically. And Jon is able to see past that. He's able to say, okay, well, that was Daenerys' grandfather, or father, rather. Maybe she's different. Maybe that doesn't necessarily mean she's going to be exactly like her father, exactly like how cruel he was. So he's able to see past that, and hopefully something good comes out of this. Something I really enjoyed was that ship battle. This whole episode I was waiting for something big to come along, and then we get this right at the end. It reminded me very much of a Pirates of the Caribbean. And just the fighting, the lighting at nighttime, just the fire, the cannon fire going everywhere. It was really cool seeing the Sand Sisters just fighting. A couple of them died, unfortunately. So yeah, pretty choreographed fight. Definitely, I liked seeing this naval ship combat, which we really, I don't think, have seen in this series so far. And one last thing I want to talk about is Samwell, you know, just doing the whole extraction of the grayscale off of Ser Jorah. I mean, this is just as crazy. This is one of those scenes that it was like, wow, it's hard to watch through this because certainly for Jorah, like, he's got to bite down on his belt or whatever that thing was in his mouth to kind of muffle out his screams, and it's just this pus stuff coming out of there. And it shows you how selfless Samwell is. He knows that this guy is the son of Jorah Mormont, who is one of the most respected people he had ever met. So he's going to go and try to save his son, who he doesn't even really know much about. So I can't wait to see where these two go. And I hope that Ser Jorah's life is saved because, wow, this has really spread in a very short amount of time with that grayscale. So I'm going to move on into my negatives of the episode. I only have one thing that really stood out to me, and that is the scene between Missandei and Grey Worm. And this seemed like it went on a little bit too far. I don't really appreciate the whole romantic vibe I'm getting because I'm pretty sure in novels there was no romance with Grey Worm. He was a stern general of the Unsullied who are not supposed to have any kind of attachments like this. And then he's talking about his weaknesses in this episode, and that's her, and I just thought it was just a little bit too much. And they're just making this out for TV to be something interesting. So with a scene like this, you kind of feel like, okay, one of these two characters is probably going to get killed. This is probably going to be their last meeting. I will be very surprised if it isn't. Okay, I'm going to move on into my speculation from watching this episode. First off, I want to talk about Euron and his gift to Cersei. I do believe that his gift to Cersei will be, in fact, Arya Sand, because she is responsible for the death of Myrcella with the poison. So, of course, she's going to want to see or torture her to hell to just get some satisfaction. And that leaves us with Yar, who's also captured by Euron. As bad as it is for me to say this, I think she might be made from, like, public execution or something, just to send out a strong message for anybody that's rebelling against them, namely Theon, who survived. I don't know who else really survived that battle, so that'll be interesting to see. And finally, more speculation will be with Peter Baelish. I think now that Sansa Stark is now in charge of Winterfell, that Jon went away, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see Peter Baelish at his best, really conniving to try to be like the puppet master of Sansa, to pull her strings to get his agendas fixed through her. So I think we're going to see something that when Jon comes back, hopefully he comes back, Winterfell is going to be in disarray. I think it's going to be something that is just really far from what he would have really wanted to happen. And finally, closing out the episode, like always, with my quote of the episode. This one comes from Arya Stark, and it's simply, "It's not you." Now, this goes way back to season 1 of this series, and she says to her father, Ned Stark, at the time, when he's telling her about, oh yeah, he's showing her all these sketches of like the princesses of the old and their magnificent dresses and their lifestyle. She said, "That's not me" at the time. And here we are, like, how long is it? Like 6-7 years later? And the significance of this being that it's not you. Like, she is going back to Winterfell when she finds out that her brother's alive. And she's, approached by Nymeria, who is her direwolf that hasn't been in the picture since season 1. So that's right, we have 2 direwolves left on the series. But anyway, her direwolf, Nymeria, ends up just turning her back on her, and basically that's just symbolizing, like, okay, I'm not going to go with you as your companion back to Winterfell because I live out here on my own. And that's kind of saying the same thing with Arya Stark. She's not cut out to be somebody that's going to be, just hanging out at a castle. She likes to be constantly going on adventures, and I think this is going to set her up to go back towards King's Landing rather than going up to Winterfell. And you know what, Jon Snow, or Jon Stark, whatever you want to call him at this point, he is going to be going down to Dragonstone anyway, so chances are that, they're not going to be able to meet anyways. So that is what I thought of Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 2, titled Stormborn. What did you guys like most about this episode? What did you like the least? Let's talk about it in that comment section below. Also, if you're new to the channel, welcome. I have plenty of other content, including recently I've uploaded a bunch of Destiny 2 beta gameplay, so make sure you check that out if you like games. I also have lots of Star Wars content and movies and TV, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that future content. I'm Starrapter, thank you for watching, and bye bye. So did you like the video? Then make sure you rate it a thumbs up, and if you did that, go over there, hit that Starrapter head so you subscribe to my channel. Doing so will keep you up to speed on all of my latest content, speaking of which you can see a couple of my recent uploads down below. I'm also on social media, so what are you waiting for? Let's start nerding out.